You walk into a dealership and look at three identical cars. Same paint, same interior, same price bracket, and they all have two pedals. The salesperson tells you they're all automatics, and you check that box on the order form. But look at the spec sheet and you'll find an alphabet soup of acronyms: AMT, CVT, DCT, IVT, AGS. To the dealership, these are just different flavors of automatic. Under the hood, these systems operate on completely different principles. Buying one blindly means you might drive off with a car that jerks in traffic, or one requiring a 4 lakh rupee repair bill before the odometer hits 60,000 kilometers. These gearboxes aren't engineered for sterile showrooms. They are built to react to specific physical environments. A transmission that stays quiet on an empty highway might actively fight against you in dense, bumper-to-bumper Mumbai traffic. To avoid that friction, you have to match the mechanical reality of the transmission to the specific route of your daily commute. Treating all automatics as the same leads to a constant behavioral clash between the car and the driver. You need to know exactly what is shifting your gears. We start with the automated manual transmission, or AMT. It is the cheapest and most common option on the market, usually adding between 40 and 60,000 rupees to the cost of a manual variant. An AMT is a traditional manual gearbox operated by a robotic actuator. This diagram shows the core architecture, identical to a standard manual, but with a computer and a robot doing the physical work of pressing the clutch and moving the gear selector. This setup allows manufacturers to automate the shifting process without the high cost of redesigning the gearbox. It preserves the direct mechanical connection of a manual car, keeping manufacturing costs low and fuel efficiency high. However, because it is still a manual clutch, the actuator must physically interrupt torque delivery to shift. When the robot cuts the power flow to change gears, the car lurches forward. In stop-and-go traffic, this results in a repetitive head nod between first and second gear. On the highway, this shift lag means the car cannot react instantly to your foot. If you need to pass a vehicle, you have to wait for the system to register your request, disengage the clutch, and drop a gear. You learn to plan overtakes seconds in advance. The AMT is a strictly functional, budget-first solution. It trades ride refinement for the lowest possible entry price into clutchless driving. Drivers trapped in dense urban gridlock often gravitate toward the continuously variable transmission, or CVT, because it removes the interruptions found in an AMT. This system removes fixed gears entirely. Instead, it uses two cone-shaped pulleys connected by a steel belt. As you accelerate, hydraulic pressure continuously changes the diameter of these pulleys, creating an infinite number of gear ratios. Because there are no distinct gears to move between, there is zero shift shock. The engine stays at its most efficient RPM while delivering a smooth, uninterrupted buildup of speed. In a 90-minute commute, this lack of vibration significantly reduces driver fatigue. Cautionary, but aggressive throttle input reveals the rubber band effect. The engine revs to a high, constant drone while the pulleys take time to physically adjust. This results in a disconnect where the engine noise increases long before the car actually builds road speed. CVTs are also sensitive to abuse. If you skip the specialized fluid changes or tow heavy loads, the steel belt can slip against the pulleys. This slippage scores the metal surfaces, which usually leads to a total gearbox failure that cannot be easily repaired. The CVT prioritizes smoothness and fuel efficiency in the city. It provides a refined driving experience, provided you maintain a relaxed driving style and a strict service schedule. The dual-clutch transmission, or DCT, is engineered for response times and high-speed efficiency on the open highway. The architecture is sophisticated. A DCT is essentially two manual gearboxes stacked into a single unit. One shaft carries the odd gears, while the other carries the even gears, each with its own clutch. While you are driving in one gear, the system has already pre-engaged the next gear on the second shaft. When you need to shift, the mechatronics unit executes a millisecond clutch handoff. This eliminates torque loss and makes gear changes nearly instant. However, this speed is a disadvantage in gridlock. When crawling at 5 kilometers per hour, the computer is forced to constantly slip the clutches to prevent the engine from stalling. This constant slipping creates extreme heat. In dry clutch models, which rely on airflow for cooling, This heat builds up rapidly in stop-and-go traffic. If the temperature spikes, the transmission will trigger a thermal shutdown, leaving you stationary in traffic until the unit cools. This is why wet clutch variants exist. They submerge the clutches in an oil bath to dissipate heat, allowing the transmission to survive the friction of a typical Indian city commute. A DCT provides immediate response on open roads, but it requires the owner to adopt defensive driving habits in traffic to prevent premature wear. The true cost of an automatic becomes clear at the 6-year mark, when the car moves from the showroom to the service bay. The AMT is the least expensive to maintain over the long term.
Since the core unit is a simple manual gearbox, routine service is affordable, and most local garages can repair the mechanical components if they wear out. For a DCT, the costs are higher. In urban environments, you should expect to replace the clutch packs around the 80,000 kilometer mark. This is a predictable maintenance expense that can cost over 1 lakh rupees. The CVT carries the highest risk of a catastrophic bill. If the internal pulleys are damaged by old, degraded fluid, service centers will typically push for a full gearbox replacement, which can cost up to 4 lakh rupees. Changing the fluid on a strict schedule is the most effective way to protect these systems. That oil is the only barrier preventing the high-precision metal parts from destroying one another. Trading an automatic as maintenance-free is an expensive mistake. A 10,000 rupee fluid service is the cheapest insurance against a total mechanical rebuild. Choosing a transmission is a calculation based on where you drive and how long you intend to keep the car. Match the hardware to your route. Pick the CVT for seamless city driving, pick the DCT for immediate highway response, and the AMT to keep your purchase and maintenance costs as low as possible. If you plan to keep your car for a decade, prioritize a wet clutch setup or a CVT over a dry clutch DCT to avoid significant repair costs later in the car's life. Identifying the specific gearbox behind the automatic label allows you to buy a car that fits your daily life, rather than one that eventually becomes a financial burden.